You know, a recent Gallup poll showed congressional approval ratings have fallen to 21%. And I can only echo the words of Insta pundit Glenn Reynolds, who asked, there are 21% who approve? Now, everybody complains about the weather, but nobody does anything about it. Well, I have some solutions. But let's do this the right way. Now, this may come as a great shock to those of you who just assumed from my confident air and my He-Man build that I was probably state champion high school quarterback or triple letterman of some kind. Actually, no. As a matter of fact, the only interscholastic competition I ever engaged in was, brace yourselves now, high school debate. I did it for the noblest of reasons, to become a chick magnet, which is why, in a way, I became a conservative. To steal a line from Irving Kristol, a conservative is an idealist who's been mugged by reality. But it wasn't a total wash. I learned how to construct and defend arguments, and the way you construct an argument is to first make the case. In other words, what's wrong with the status quo? Once you make the case that we need to change, you then have to present the plan for change. So here's the case, then the plan. Congress has an approval rating of 21% because there has not been a Congress in living memory that has been this out of touch with the will of the American people. Now, one reason they're out of touch is because they're becoming congressmen for life. Take this gentleman, Robert Byrd, Democrat from West Virginia. Robert Byrd was born on November 20th, 1917, just about the time the U.S. was getting into World War I. He was elected to the Senate on January 3rd, 1959. That's 3 months and 4 days before yours truly arrived on planet Earth, and I just turned 50. Robert Byrd has been a senator longer than I've been alive. Now, the internet didn't come into its own until the early 90s, but Senator Robert Byrd not only predates the internet and the personal computer. Robert Byrd became senator before there was color television. As a matter of fact, former Ku Klux Klan Kleagle and exalted Cyclops Robert Byrd has been in the Senate for so long that he was elected back when being a racist was cool. That's a long time. But hey, it's not fair to say that just because we have one exalted Cyclops that makes them all bad apples. So let's go to the nonpartisan opencongress.org and take a quick look at who's currently under investigation for ethics violations. Now, that would be sitting members of Congress. And I'd like to stress that these remain charges and allegations and that our congressmen are innocent until proven guilty. Ready? Here we go. First, the senators. Democrat Bob Menendez of New Jersey for improper financial relationships. Democrat Roland Burris from Illinois, the man who took President Obama's seat, is under investigation for lying about how he got the job. Democrat Kent Conrad of North Dakota, preferential mortgage rates from Countrywide Financial. Democrat Chris Dodd of Connecticut, ditto. Now, on to the House of Representatives, and we've really got to pick up the pace since there's so much ground to cover. Democrat Stanford Bishop of Georgia, inappropriate use of federal money going to relatives. Democrat Bob Filner of California, assault and battery. Republican Sam Graves of Missouri, financial ties to witnesses called to testify. Democrat Jane Harman of California, illegal lobbying procedures. Democrat Jesse Jackson Jr. of Illinois, improper use of influence to fill a Senate seat. Republican Jerry Lewis of California, inappropriate earmarking. Republican Gary Miller of California, inappropriate real estate transactions. Democrat Alan Mollahan of West Virginia, inappropriate earmarking. Republican Tim Murphy of Pennsylvania, illegal campaign-related activities. Democrat John Murtha of Pennsylvania, an earmarks for donations racket. Democrat Loretta Sanchez of California, illegally put aides on her sister's payroll. Democrat Linda Sanchez of California, illegally took her sister's aides and put them on her payroll. Democrat Charles Rangel of New York, multiple financial and ethical charges far too numerous to relate here. Democrat Peter Visklowski of Indiana, inappropriate ties to an insurance agency. Democrat Maxine Waters of California, likely improperly used TARP money for a bank she has a stake in. And finally, Republican Don Young of Alaska, improper use of earmarks. Now, that's a fair amount of larceny, but even this epic money grubbing pales in comparison to what Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid has in mind for you, the rabble and the masses, that can't seem to get through your heads that he knows what's better for you than you do. There has been talk that Harry Reid will attempt to pass an increasingly unpopular single-payer national health care bill by attaching it as a rider, as an amendment, to a completely unrelated bill. He would then be able to circumvent not only the will of the people, but essentially the will of the lower house of Congress as well. This is so monumentally corrupt, so epic and unprecedented in its sheer conniving sinfulness, that I don't think that there can be any further question that the members of Congress of the United States as a whole have violated their oath to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States of America. No, they've got to go, all of them, every single one of them. Okay, have I made the case? Well, that'll be up to you, but here's my plan. Ready? For $935 million, that's 0.0003 or 3% of 1% of the total federal budget for 2008, I believe I can return government to the people. Here's how. Every member of the House of Representatives who steps down immediately will receive tax-free a check for $1 million. 435 representatives totals $435 million. That's a bargain. Now, the Senate's a little tougher, so let's say $5 million for each senator. Cash on the barrel, 100 senators at $5 million each is $500 million. Plus the $435 million for the House equals $935 million. Now remember, that's about 3% of 1% of the out-of-control spending that these people foist on us every single day. Or, if you prefer, I could buy the entire Congress with what they spend between midnight and 3 a.m. on January 1st of the budgetary year. Folks, we already pay farmers not to farm. Why can't we pay legislators not to legislate? Now, there is a problem here, but I am far-seeing enough, and I know the evil and the mendacity that the human heart is capable of well enough to have an answer for it, too. Most members of Congress are merely third-rate money grubbers looking for a little action. But there is a more resistant strain of congressmen, and that is the wealthy millionaire lifer like the late Ted Kennedy, and those that marry millionaires so that they can live like a Kennedy, like John Kerry or Nancy Pelosi. They're not in it for the money. No, like Robert Byrd, these miscreants are in it for the ego. Here's a list of the projects named after the illustrious former exalted Cyclops of the Ku Klux Klan. Now we got to move on. How do we defeat this? Well, we bite the bullet. If they should agree to resign and take the money, we will rename the La Brea Tar Pits the Charles Rangel Institute for Finance, and we'll rename Jefferson's Monticello Mansion as the Chris Dodd Center for Real Estate Studies. We'll remove the Statue of Liberty from New York Harbor, we'll tighten her face into a smile that looks like a death grimace, we'll remount it in San Francisco Bay, and we'll call it the Nancy Pelosi Golden Gate Goddess. And finally, we'll take the Grand Canyon, all of it, the whole thing, and we'll rename it the Harry Mason Reed National Money Pit. Now that should be enough to soothe these diseased egos. Just until they die, of course, then we can put them back the way they were. I think my plan is foolproof. It's cost-effective and it will work. However, if you don't like this plan but still think something needs to be done, then do what I'm going to do. Get on your computer and go to contractfromamerica.com. Now, at contractfromamerica.com, you can make your own proposals on how to reform government and debate and vote on competing proposals. This is serious business, not the nonsense I just outlined to vent my rage and frustration so that I don't have to shoot myself in the head every time I think about this insane clown posse in Washington. No, these are serious proposals. Some of them are brilliant proposals regarding budgeting, proper constitutional authority for federal laws, term limits, immigration reform, and the rolling back of this sea of kudzu. These life-draining regulations and laws that accomplish nothing but gratifying the ego of the insulated imperial student council wonks that came up with them in the first place. Contractfromamerica.com reminds me of a 21st century constitutional convention. Common citizens using debate, reason, and logic to provide astonishingly inventive and achievable real-world solutions that can then be presented to Congress nicely, hopefully, or on the tines of a pitchfork if they don't get the message the first time. Now, this Imperial Congress for Life has got to go. And $935 million, my friends, that's a bargain. The way they're spending money, it's a bargain at $935 billion. I'm Bill Whittle, and that's my modest proposal.